everyone. We're now live at TEDx Beacon Street, and sitting next to me is David Howse. David is a musician, theater maker, also a truth teller. He just got off the stage, gave us very passionate and powerful talk. Could you tell us a little bit about what was the talk?
Sure. I was talking about the idea of how we might navigate conversations of race with truth and dignity. I find that, particularly in today's time, we're being confronted with issues related to race, and we're just not equipped to talk about the topic in a way that's meaningful and in a way that we often feel good about. And so I've been thinking a lot in my role as a convener of art, but also this intersection of art and social integration and how we actually tackle tough issues through art, but also through conversation and dialogue. And so part of what I'm hoping that we might consider are three steps that get us closer to get us closer to more productive conversations. And the first step was around being self-aware. We often come to these conversations feeling like we're helping the other person when we actually haven't taken the time to help ourselves. The second step would be to surround yourself with others. We often find ourselves in bubbles with like-minded people, often looking like us, thinking like us, and as we can see from the results of our recent election, that can be dangerous. And so I am encouraging us to put ourselves next to people, even those we're uncomfortable with or we're not familiar with, to understand those perspectives and help that inform your own way of navigating the world. And then thirdly, the third step is to speak up. When you see something, say something. If you see a microaggression, if you see an indignity or some sort of bias that shows up in the workplace, in your personal life, in social settings, having the courage to actually say something. It actually makes you feel more powerful, but it does a huge amount for the people on whose behalf you're speaking. And so I just talk a little bit about those as three sort of framing steps go into a conversation. It's ongoing work. It's a journey of 1,000 miles.
Oh, absolutely, especially within like this election.
Absolutely.
And how do you think theater helps us to have a better
Well, it's
identity?
it's theater and it's all the art form. It's James, not James Baldwin, but it was Harry Belafonte. No, it wasn't. Hold on. What was the guy's? Paul Robeson, who said that artists are gatekeepers of the truth. They are civilization's radical voice. And it's always been the case that arts can put a mirror in front of us and show us both where we've been, but also can help us understand where we're going. There's so many different narratives that can emerge through the art that for us to actually engage them and to be curious about them can open up all sorts of dialogue if we're prepared to engage in those conversations. So I get excited about the role that art can play in helping us tackle some of these challenging issues.
That's fascinating. And at which point of your career do you realize art has its power?
So I guess I became really conscious of it. There's probably an unconscious part of it was part of my being since I started performing, but probably consciously maybe 10 years ago when I was very instrumental in growing the Boston Children's Chorus, an organization that uses music to impact social change. And so I began thinking about how this integration of art and social justice might actually move the dial, might open minds, might connect us more deeply to each other. And it's a safe approach to it in most cases, and it's something that we all have experience with, whether it's art in the theater or art via dance or music. We all have some connection to the art, and all have stories and narratives that can be told through the art. And it's a way to share that perspective, and for all of us to actually dive and get to know it better.
Absolutely. And in your profession, how have you seen art being making an impact in, with the children's chorus or in society in general?
Well, if you think about most social movements, I like to believe that at the heart of those social movements are, radical activists. And usually at the core of those radical activists are artists, even creating music or chanting or creating dances or visual displays to demonstrate, but also to acknowledge their presence. And so for me, it's a role that has played over time, and it continues to play out in our current movements that are going on here. But also, the arts have a role in healing. It's the place that we go to when we've dealt with national catastrophe, sort of a national celebration. It's the place that we gravitate toward for solace, for healing, for inspiration. And in many ways, that does so much from a social perspective. to advance the work of social justice and advance humanity in general.
Absolutely. And that's such an important message about, art form as healing power, but also as the social justice, tool to help people understand. So in your work, what do you see as the challenges for people to better understand social justice through art? What are some of the work that needs to be?
Well, art has a history of being for the elite. And art also has a history of being very Eurocentric. We look at it through a very white frame. And I think our challenge is, as a country, to really broaden that and to make sure that there's cultural equity, that everyone's stories are being told in all of our different venues. You know, from the museums, to the symphonies, to the ballets, to the opera house, to the theater, to the concert hall. All those narratives need to be told. And the challenge is for us to be curious enough about others, for us to be curious about someone else's experience. That's what's preventing us from seeing more of the various perspectives on our stage. That, for me, is what holds our inability to be curious about someone who's.
Well, I completely agree with you. Just use classical music as an example. Composers, players are not necessarily the most diverse group of people. So how do we, engage community? How do we get a message?
Well, first of all, we have to do better within our organizations. And when I talk about doing better in the field of theater, there are probably 73 what they're called LORT theaters. Those are the largest theaters in the country. And while we're not a member of LORT at my theater, of those 73 organizations, 5 have artistic directors of color, and 0 of them have executive directors of color. So I am one of few. And so we have to actually make sure we're reflecting in our organizations the diversity we want to see on our stage and the diversity we want to see in our audience. But there are pipelines out there. There are people who are waiting, ready to take on these roles. We have to see them, first of all, and we have to open our doors and embrace them and embrace the ideas that they come in with. We can't expect them to come in and take on our own, thinking. We want to embrace them and embrace their new ideas and their fresh perspectives. So I think we have a lot to do as organizations. And I think once we begin to reflect what our country looks like, it'll be much easier to mobilize community because they will see themselves in our organization, they will see themselves on our stages, and they will see the organization as part of it. We have to be citizen organizations.
Absolutely, citizen organization. That's a great message. And what would be your advice for your fellow musicians or, people who are passionate about, making a change in this conversation, but aren't necessarily up there or up the front of, I need to take charge, I need to be in those leadership roles to make our institutions first.
Well, I'm going to go back where we started. I'm going to say that they need to start with themselves. They have to understand where they sit in this conversation. What are their own issues? What are they doing to prevent the conversation from moving forward? It's often we look at someone else as the culprit when we are playing our own role in stopping progress. So starting with themselves, surrounding themselves with people who are different from them, making sure that they're hearing different perspectives. They're just not trying to be saviors to help other people, but they're actually clued in to what really the world is experiencing. And then third, I would say that they speak up. So you don't have to be a leader to actually affect. But you have to be willing to acknowledge that there's a problem, and you have to figure out dignified ways to approach that conversation with your team or with the leadership of your organization. But we can't actually sit idly by in these moments. We actually need radical activists who are willing to actually create a little bit of disruption for the sake of
And change with start within ourselves.
starts with yourself.
Absolutely. And if people wanted to educate themselves more, where can they find more your topic or about your.
Well, I'm going to be doing quite a bit of more writing. There's actually a lot of good thinking that's happening out there. There's a lot of social science research that gets at the heart of the self and surrounding yourself with others and speaking up. So, but I would certainly, I have a website, my personal website, davidchowse.com, and happy to have people visit there. I often post and make links to other resources as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. And if you want to check out David's full talk, please go to tedxbeaconstreet.com.